Welcome in to the little show leading to the big show, or the big dance as the situation may unfold. As always, your host with the most, my partner in crime, James the Jet, myself, America's favorite bitch ass white boy, CProc. And we have to get ready for the dance, and we don't want to leave you hanging all the way up until tournament time. So we'll give you a little bit of a tease right now. We bring in longtime guest expert of the show, of the Hoops Boys podcast, Gregor's putting on his college basketball insider cap. Gregor's, how are we doing tonight?
Doing all right. How about you boys?
Doing good, doing good.
Yeah, favorite time of the year, tourney time on the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we had to have you on the show for this year.
Thank you. I love it as usual.
But there's something we want to start talking about today, and there's something that happened that never happened in college hoops history. Greg, do you want to expound upon that?
Sure. So it was mayhem yesterday. Top 6 teams in the country, every one of them lost, and 7 top 10 teams overall, which the same thing, first time in basketball history. So, the question of, are there any overwhelming favorites going into the tournament? Well, you got your answer yesterday. When the top 6 teams all lose, we're in for a fun ride, I think.
When they all lose like 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out.
Yeah. So, and I think it fits the theme this year. There's no overwhelming team. There's no Gonzaga or Baylor from last year. So you do have a lot of very good teams, no great ones, hence how you can have 1 through 6 go down in one single day. So actually not that shocking as far as I'm concerned. Shocking to be all in the same day, yes. And a lot of fun to watch. Yesterday was a day I watched pretty much noon till midnight, and it was fun.
Which one of those games was like the worst loss? Was it Gonzaga to St. Mary's, Arizona falling to Colorado, Tennessee upending Auburn, Purdue losing to unranked Michigan State, or defending champ Baylor take out Kansas? Or
So
I'm sorry,
I think
Kentucky, Arkansas. That was the other one. 6, not 5.
The biggest concern in some of these you can write off as a one, pretty much as a one-off. Like Arizona, for instance, like I write that one off. Colorado's fairly decent. They got blitzkrieged at home. Arizona's been solid all year. They just weren't the better team yesterday. The one that the Baylor, Kansas, same thing. They're both excellent teams, potential one seeds. Baylor took a whooping at Kansas a few weeks ago. It's basically a revenge game. I don't take much out of that. The Auburn one is the concerning one to me most off. Main reason is their level of play is tailed off lately. A lot of turnovers in the last few weeks, and they basically have who's probably the number 1 pick in the draft in Jabari Smith. Logically, you would think that most possessions should go through Jabari Smith, and also considering Walter Kessler is 7'1" center who's improved rapidly, who's been a beast. Their guards, there's way too many possessions, and it's been a theme now the last few weeks. They're not great 3-point shooting teams. Like, don't get me wrong, these kids are talented, they can push the tempo, but they're jacking up way too many shots too early. In no offensive sets. Smith isn't seeing the ball multiple possessions at a time. So I think you're starting to see that, and they're losing composure. Like there was a point yesterday in the Tennessee game where they had a big lead, double digits. Tennessee took a lead, let's call it in the 6 to 8 range, 5-6 minutes left. The game was nowhere near over. And Auburn's fouling, like off turnovers, just dumb, really dumb fouls, unneeded. They basically were losing their composure. So for me, that's not a good sign, going into the SEC tournament and the tournament, because, that's a style of play. And if they don't drastically change that, there's no way that formula is going to work, because they're like I said, their guards are jacking up threes. And I don't want to say they're awful, but they're not great 3-point shooters, and you can't not let Jabari Smith see the ball. So for me, that one's concerning. The second one, here's the deal with Gonzaga. The loss itself is not – there's nothing about the loss that is overly concerning in of itself. So they lost to St. Mary's, who's a definite tourney team. It was on the road. St. Mary's is good. The problem is that St. Mary's, I think, gave a blueprint of how Gonzaga probably will lose. I don't think Gonzaga, they've had a great year. I don't think they're anywhere near as good a team overall as they were last year. And with that being said, a team that's really tough, physical, I think teams can slow them down. I think how Baylor beat Gonzaga in the final last year, the wrong match for Gonzaga, I think, can do the same exact thing. And don't get me wrong, they're a very good team, but I think that the way Gonzaga lost, going from basically 90 a game, they're held, I believe, in the 50s, that can happen. So I would say Auburn definitely number one, Gonzaga 2, and Purdue to Michigan State, just quickly on them. Purdue has a load of talent. Their defensive issues are now becoming more prevalent than they had been. So I think even in Purdue's spot, there's a little concern there too. Like they have to. I think it's fixable, but they have to shore that up. If they don't, they'll go out in the tourney.
That would be kind of wild for Gonzaga. They finally get up to this level where they're actually making the final and giving it a run, and get snake bitten 2 years in a row, right at the doorstep.
It's weird because they've had a great year, so it's not a cut on their year. It's just they don't have Jalen Suggs from last year, and that to me is a huge factor. Like Holmgren, the center, the freshman, who's he's going to be a top 3 pick, but he needs to put on a lot of bulk, a lot of size, and I think a physical team come the tournament, like I think there is a blueprint for beating them. That's easier than there was last year. But on the flip side, as we just alluded to, I don't think there's a great team out there, but any one of these teams is ripe for the picking.
Let's dive in a little bit deeper on Auburn. You already went through a lot of their deficiencies this year, but this was a school that got out like gangbusters to start the season off. And Auburn, for a long time was not a basketball powerhouse, and Bruce Pearl came to town. I mean, aside from the Charles Barkley era, I don't want to forget about that. But Bruce Pearl comes to town, and they're right back in elite status every year, and they looked like they were sparkly. Just as the season went on throughout the early going, and then they've just been falling apart lately. So is this just they're just going all those issues you laid out before? They're just going back to the Auburn of old, or they still got something left?
No way. I mean, they have. Pearl has obviously done a great job. I mean, they were inches from going to the final a few years ago. They still, don't get me wrong. Pearl's an excellent coach. Could they fix this? Well, pretty much anyone could fix it when you have probably the number 1 pick and 2 first-rounders, the center Kessler. So the talent is there. They definitely can do that. But I think Pearl, you worry that, like any team, sometimes you peak too early. Whether it's pro basketball, college basketball, I do worry a little bit of that Auburn going forward. But it's basically gonna have to rely on Pearl, because he's gonna have to get that offense basically refocused. They need to settle down. They need to, inside out first. They need to go to Smith more. They need to utilize Kessler. He's a beast down below. So I don't think it's not fixable, but there needs to be, I think, you can't write this off as one loss now. There's been a few in the last couple of weeks, and you're seeing those issues are troubling. So, but the long term, I mean, listen, that program is definitely on the way up, no doubt about it. I'm just talking from a national championship perspective this year. They have things to fix now. It's definitely a problem.
Beautiful. I mean, being that this college season has been so up and down, and there's no clear cut number 1 team, so to speak, or best teams, in your heart of hearts, picking your Final Four, what teams would those be? Would that be?
It's funny because I was really curious this weekend. I have my eye on, say, 12 teams where I'm trying to focus in on. And some of the warts were exposed this weekend, so my focus has shifted a bit. But I will say this: the team that I feel that has been most consistent, if I called it that, I think is Arizona. Actually, which is a phenomenal job. They have a new head coach. Arizona outside of yesterday has offensively, defensively, they have two bigs. Like to me, they're the real deal. Like, so I don't see them. I don't see any glaring weaknesses from Arizona. So if I take it from that perspective, I think they're the least prone to having a bad upset. So I'm really high on Arizona this year. I think the other team that I think the sky is the limit right now for is Kentucky. Even though they lost yesterday, Kentucky has improved substantially. Oscar Tshiebwe, who's a transfer from West Virginia, he could be the player of the year this year. I mean, he's literally averaging, I think, 15 rebounds a game. He's been an absolute monster down below. I mean, completely dominating the boards. JoJo Washington, their guards have been hurt lately, but Washington, he's no doubt going to be a first rounder, probably a lottery pick. He's key. He's been a little banged up. He did play yesterday. If he's healthy, I think Kentucky, I would pick them right now to win the SEC tournament. And as strong as the SEC has been this year, which it has, I'd have to give Kentucky, if they go through that gauntlet, I'd probably put them as a Final Four team, a possible 1 seed in a Final Four team. So I'm high on Kentucky. Other than that, a team, you know what's funny? A team that I think is very interesting to me is Texas Tech. Texas Tech, you know exactly what they're going to do. They make everyone's life completely miserable. I actually was at the Texas Tech Kansas game down in Lubbock a few weeks ago, and Kansas is right. Kansas is right on the line for the 1 or 2 seed, and you could see Kansas frustration. And Agbaji even who's their best player. He had a big game, but even with that, like, the points weren't easy to come by. So I feel like Texas Tech, the offense can be limited at times, but they have a lot of talent. They're deep. They've done most of they've had a large portion of schedule where they lost 2-3 of their main players, and they're still in this position. So now they're getting healthier. So I think, like, for me, Texas Tech, they're going to be really tough to beat because they don't have to score 85 a game to win. They can muck it up with anyone, and they've done it against some top teams. So, like, that's a team for me that they lost as well, by the way. They were part of that top 10, but same thing, a close loss at TCU. TCU's desperate for a tourney berth right now. I don't take too much out of that game. The offense struggled. It can be a little sloppy at times, but I'm high on them. I think Texas Tech is the real deal. I would pick them right now to go to the Final Four. The rest, I think I don't recall a year like this where I literally could go almost, 15, 16 deep of, like, teams who legit have a really good chance to make the Final Four. And usually that list isn't that high. Yeah. And it's not, I don't even want to call it parity, or there's just not that elite team. And there's a lot of very good teams. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. And I really think that's what it comes down. Baylor, one note too, Baylor suffered a huge injury. Their big guy got hurt. He's out for the year a few weeks back. Baylor was looking a lot like last year's Baylor team. I don't think by any means, they beat Kansas without him yesterday. I don't think by any means they're going to tank, but their ceiling is not as high without the big man. It's just not. So I would have had them there prior to that injury. Right now, I can't. I don't think they can. I don't think they can go, 4 or 5 games deep in the tourney without him. Changes the complexion of the team.
Texas Tech, your dark horse then, or do you have any other rabbits
Chase,
out of your
I can't
hat?
even really, like, it's funny. I was listening to Wally Zerbiak on CBS, right? And he actually, it's funny, he echoed the same sentiment. He goes, I don't really, even though Texas Tech isn't ranked in the top 5, like, he said that team to me, and I agree with him. Like, I can't really call them a dark horse. I know it's not the name everyone thinks of, but if you've watched them play, they're really, really good. And another thing, do you remember Oral Roberts last year, who made that great run?
Yeah.
One of their best players, Obanor, he transferred to Texas Tech this year.
Oh.
So they they have a lot of talent. And I'm telling you, when I saw them in person, you get a different gauge of, they literally get after every possession, every passing lane, and that translates. they can win a game where they shoot, under 40% because they really make teams miserable. So do you call it a dark horse? I really don't. Like, I think if you've really watched this season, they're not going to be the cliche name.
Yeah.
But they're legit. Like, they're really, really good. And as I said, they don't have to play great at times because they're going to make it miserable. You could see it every single possession Kansas had that game. You could tell they were not enjoying it. But Chase, to your question again. All right, so you're looking for, or both of you guys, you're looking for more of a dark horse?
Yeah.
So I'm going to not put them as that because I don't think I'm looking down the line here. A team that's really impressed me lately, and they're probably going to be in the 5 seed, 5-6, is Arkansas. Again, the SEC is loaded. Arkansas has played some really good ball lately. They beat Kentucky yesterday.
Yes, Kentucky.
They've had some really big wins. That's a really tough conference. I'd put Arkansas on that. I think Arkansas is good enough on the right day that they could make that run easily. I do. Yeah, and they'll probably be the 5 or 6 seed. And one more I'll throw in there. And I guess a long shot to make the Final Four. Wisconsin's, again, this isn't like a long shot of epic proportions, but Wisconsin can play well on the road. Johnny Davis, their point guard, he could be player of the year. I'm a firm believer when you have a guard who's that good, and we've seen it in a number of teams. I'm a UConn guy. We've seen it over the years with them. If you have a guard who is that good, I feel like you can win any game on a given day. So I would throw Wisconsin into that mix. I would.
And Wisconsin historically always has that scrappy mentality.
A
workman's
they
team.
had a big win. It's not going to make national news, but they won at Rutgers this weekend, and Rutgers at home has actually been really, really good, and Rutgers has been playing good ball. And that's even when Rutgers is not good, that's always a tough place to play. They seem at the rack. They seem to get a huge home court advantage. Wisconsin went in this weekend and took care of business. So actually touching on that, one more team who's really improved lately is Iowa.
Oh, Hawkeyes.
Yes, same conference. Iowa defensively, I don't know if they hold up the whole way, but another example, Keegan Murray, who they have, their forward, he's just blown up this year. He's played his way into probably a top 10 pick. I mean, they put a beating on Michigan State. I believe it was Monday. I mean, it was a thorough beating. The game was over in 8 minutes. They have multiple guys who can shoot. Seriously, it was. They have multiple guys who can. They always can score. But and it's no cut on Matt Garza, where Garza was the star last year. Murray is just he's going to be a better pro. He's a better player. So I think they have that star potential. They do give up a lot of points, but again, when you have a star and a team that can light up the scoreboard and shoot threes like them, that team, they're ranked, I think 24, 25 right now. That ranking is going to go up. I could see them going on a run actually, because they have that top high end ceiling. Let's put it that way.
So let's bring a couple things together based on you saying that. The Spartans are hurting a little bit more than just yesterday's bloodbath.
I'm way down on the Spartans as of late. They had a nice win against Purdue yesterday, but here's what I take out of that game. They gave everything they had, and they did. It was max effort, and I give them credit for it. Purdue played very sloppy. Ivy, who's an absolute star, he's a top 5 pick. He did not have a good game. They gutted it out defensively. They shut down Purdue's 3-point game, and they still needed a last-second shot to win that game. They turned the ball over way, way too much this year. Way too much. They're not as locked down defensively as you would think as in most years. They're not. And offensively, they really look they look troublesome at times. It's like they don't have a clue who's going to take the shot. So, I mean, Izzo's a good coach. He'll get them to play hard, but I don't think that ceiling is high at all with them this year. They're offensively, they're really challenged. They turn the ball over. Some games, you feel like it's half the possessions. So I'm not buying Michigan State at all this year. Not one bit.
Well, things people love about the tournament are mid majors and sleeper picks, and one of which they're only ranked 19th in the country, but they're a school known to making the occasional appearance in the dance, and that's Murray State, sitting at a big fat sore thumb looking 26-2. Is Murray State for real? Are they gonna unleash their inner sister Mary?
They are for real. I mean to go to that lofty, to make a Final Four appearance and all that, that's tough to say. But the team is definitely for real. I mean, I just quickly did a run through the numbers. I believe 18 of their wins are by double digits this year. So the Ohio Valley, which is a decent conference, it's not great, it's not horrible by any means. To play in a fairly decent conference and to win that many by double digits, they've been putting a beating to people. They won at Memphis, who Memphis as of late has been playing much better. So, a lot of these mid majors, like I try to look at how did they play when they met some of the big boys. You know what? Even though Memphis wasn't playing well earlier in the year, they have a ton of talent. If you're able to win a game at Memphis, that's on the radar right off the bat. They played at Auburn. They lost by 13, but this wasn't like a blowout game. I mean, they were, I don't want to say they're going to win the game, but that's when Auburn was playing at its highest level as well. So, I mean, they have 3 legit double-digit scores. So I think Murray State could actually make that run. And even yesterday, they were down big in their game. They were down, I believe, a dozen with, call it 4 minutes left. They came back and won that game. So you're going to have a game in the tourney, where things aren't going to go well. It happens to everyone. They've even shown that, hey, when the chips are down, they're resilient. So I mean, I really do. I think I think they could make a run. Seeding's going to play a big factor, of course. And as of now, they have them as like an 8-9 seed, which that's troublesome because your second rounder is a first seed usually.
Number one.
but I don't think it's outlandish. Murray State makes some noise in the tournament. I wouldn't pick them Final Four, but who knows? No one would have picked Loyola Chicago, including myself either back then. So Loyola Chicago, on that same token, really good as well again.
When you say teams won 18 of their 26 victories by double digits in an average conference, normally that means they're just not challenged, and maybe they're fool's gold.
Again, you can somewhat make that argument, but to me that win at Memphis early in the year, because Memphis, even when they weren't playing well, is very talented. If you can go in and beat a team like Memphis, I believe Memphis started the year ranked in the top 10, if I'm right. If you can win at a big school like Memphis, you can like they've beaten Belmont twice. I know Belmont's not the caliber of. But I do think they're a legit squad. I mean, again, the Auburn game, they played there. It wasn't neutral court. If you can hang in the game at Auburn, Auburn's literally, like I said, they have the number 1 pick. They have 2 first-rounders. They light it up. So I'm buying them. I think they can do some damage, yes.
So I want to talk about a team that you love to hate. Blue Devils, Duke. They're sporting a 25-4 record overall, and they're leading their conference. This is like a recurring theme. But do you think this is I'm gonna steal Chase's line? Are they the real deal, or is this more smoke and mirrors?
Yeah, this pains me to say this because I love bashing on them. And let me preface this by saying I am so sick and tired of the Coach K farewell tour already.
Right.
I'm literally going to puke. They have a 2-hour ESPN pregame about Coach K against Carolina. I can't. I literally can't do it. It's nauseating.
They made Greg shut off a basketball game.
The quicker I don't see him again is much happier for me. But if I'm being objective, I hate to say it, I actually do like their team going into the tournament. And I don't mean that Duke's always good. I think their pieces this year, they're better suited to make a run in the tournament. You start at the top. They have a star in Paolo Banchero. He's going to be a top 3 pick. Where in the top 3, I'm not sure, but he is a no doubt about it. They're talented up and down the board. I mean, they have an interesting development over the season. Their center, Mark Williams, was a big guy. He's improved substantially, over he's a completely different player than when you previously saw him. And he adds a difference. Like Duke, even the Zion year, like Zion, was a brute, but I wouldn't call that team overall like an overly physical, like Williams to me, he adds a dimension that Duke really hasn't had too much of, I think.
Mhm.
So him for me makes a big difference. So I really think granted they have talent up and down the board, but I do think they're a little different in a good way than some of the failures they've had in the tournament the last few years. I'd be very surprised if Duke doesn't make an Elite Eight or possibly Final Four run, because I just do. I think the pieces are there. I do. Again, I hope they're out in the first round as usual, but I don't see. And even the Zion team, like I remember we talked that year, and again, I didn't know when it was going to happen, but do you guys remember they almost lost to Taco Fall in Central Florida? I actually wasn't shocked at that, just because, RJ Barrett that year couldn't hit free throws. Reddish wasn't great. They had issues. I think this Duke team is where it's maybe not as high end talented. They're close, and I think they're better suited. They're more well-rounded a team. So I think their prospects are high going into the tourney. The ACC's been weak this year, so their potential for a 1 seed is questionable. But I don't really think it'll matter. And when they beat Gonzaga earlier in the year, Gonzaga was the number 1 team. I honestly, not only was I not surprised, I actually thought Duke would actually beat them. And same thing now. Like, I know Gonzaga's numbers and all that. I actually think Duke is a better team than Gonzaga. I do.
That was my follow-up there. Going past, putting aside the bloodbath of yesterday, they're 7 right now. What are their chances of getting one of the 4 number ones?
It's not outlandish, and I think they're the team that survived the gauntlet yesterday. They put an absolute beating on Syracuse. I mean, they legit were up. I think I checked the score at one point because there was an overlap from the game prior, so I kept it on ESPN. I think it was 36-11, and Syracuse is not great this year, but I don't care. You're up 36-11 at that place. It's still Syracuse.
Yeah.
So I mean, if things break right. I think if things break right, they win the rest of their schedule. They beat Carolina. They win the ACC tournament. I definitely think they could play their way into a 1 seed, because, again, all the other teams that lost, they kind of opened the door a little bit. So you figure, just by math, I think Arizona is definitely getting the 1. Baylor and Kansas, who are vying for it, one of them's not going. They're going to lose a game, obviously. One of them's not going to win the Big 12. So someone's taking another loss there. So I think the window is open, put it that way. If they ran the table, they definitely they probably would get a 1 seed.
Switching gears to a team that actually is always near and dear to your heart, the UConn Huskies. They're ranked. They had a big win against Georgetown.
Big win against Nova.
I'm sorry.
Nova. Georgetown's not too big this year. No. Poor Pat Ewing is struggling out there this year, winless in the Big East.
Wow, that's weird to say. Are the Huskies legitimate?
I'll tell you what. So they are. They're definitely legitimate. The Huskies, not to the same level. Athletically, on the defensive end, they can get after you. They can board. Sonogo down low is an absolute beast. So they do. They're definitely. I would put right now their potential as, like, I could see them Sweet 16, Elite 8 run. The caveat I will say with that, though, is that they don't, even last year where they disappointed, they went out in the first round, they just played a horrible game. They had James Bouknight, and I'm a firm believer you need that guy to take over a game, when you need a big shot. RJ Cole has been the point guard for UConn. He's had a great year. Cole's upside is not Bouknight. And there's been a lot of times during the year that their offense just looks completely stagnant. It looks a little schoolballish. I like Hurley as a coach. I like the talent. They have some depth. I worry their ceiling though is a little limited because there's too many games where they don't score enough points. But with that being said, again, there's without there being a super like UConn right now would probably be. I'm projecting them to be a 4 or 5 going in the tourney. Depending on who they get as that, let's say they go to the Sweet 16 and play a 1 seed. I don't think any of these 1 seeds they play are going to be overwhelmingly better than them either. Talent wise, UConn is there. But I think their offensive limitations caps them. Like I can't see them winning a title. I can't see them going on that Kemba run, that Shabazz run, because they don't have that guy. That being said, they are legit. They're a very good team. As Ewing said it himself, he said, I think UConn is the most talented team in the Big East. And that's saying a lot. So very high floor. The ceiling is a little lower than I'd like because I just don't see late in the game. Yeah, I don't see that superstar where they're going every possession late in the game. It can be sporadic at times.
So are you impressed then with the Hurley era thus far?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the main issues, and it's not to dump on Kevin Ollie and that whole mess, but UConn had, and I understand the transfer portal is now it's an issue for everyone, but they had so many guys leaving the program. And I can't speak to why that happened, but it's just UConn was never seeing that for years. They didn't even have to recruit anymore. People were going to there. So first of all, Hurley's definitely, that has subsided a bit. There's an energy with the program, and you've had consistently the few years he's now been here. They have very good recruiting classes and another on the way. So their arrow is definitely back up as a program, no doubt.
Since you brought up the Hoya struggles, does Patrick Ewing get the boot?
Oof, that's a tough one. I mean, so on the same token, the transfer portal, they had a number of their best players leave, so the cupboard was left a little bare. They do have a really good recruiting class coming in. I don't see them getting rid of him this year, but I don't think after this year he's going to have much more lead. I think if I'm right, the record as a head coach now is 26 and like 61. And even it's not good. And even last year, they really weren't a good team. They had a really good Big East tournament and they made a kind of a miraculous run. But if you look at the big picture, that was like a good week, and there's not been enough of them for Georgetown. So the loyalty to the program, they love keeping their own in-house, which I totally get. It's Pat Ewing. He's a legend there. They do have a good recruiting class coming in, but I can't imagine he has too much more of a leash. I mean, because there's a really good chance they're going winless in the Big East for the whole season. That's not a good look, no matter who you are.
That's tough.
Yeah, it is what
For
it is. And so I think on a whole, the program, they're going to have to see substantial progress. I don't think they'll get rid of him this year, but I don't know how much of a leash you can't become irrelevant either, right? So
yeah. Well, speaking of Pat Ewing, another team that he's familiar with is the New York Knicks. I want to talk about today's game against the 76ers, and James Harden had their brand new toy, James Harden, the beer. And the Knicks definitely had to fear the beer today. Partner, let's start with you. Like, how do you feel about this game?
I wish I could forget it. I mean, I guess we were speaking a little off air. I guess it's not that much of a surprise because we haven't exactly picked up the magic that we had last year. No pun intended, because of course the Magic don't have any magic. But I mean, even if they hadn't gotten Harden, the way the Knicks have been playing this year, you can't really be too surprised with them getting smacked around by Philadelphia. Because they've been exceptional all season. Even without, with Ben Simmons playing pouty face and not wanting to play for him. So, but it is what it is. I think it was. I think we've seen a couple games now of Philadelphia with James Harden. So I think that could, we spoke about it on a previous show. I think that really could be a dangerous inside out punch for them.
Yeah, I really think, and I think today is like a good showing of that. of what they can be. Greg, how do you feel? Did you catch the game? How you feel about
Yeah,
today?
you know what I did. I got to be honest. Like, and I mean, I've dumped on the Knicks for my beloved Knicks for it feels like since 1932 now. But they actually, I know it really does feel like that. I mean, honestly, like after 3 quarters, they were right in the game. I mean, I don't really know how much more you could expect, to be honest. I don't even view this as like it's kind of to be expected.
Yeah.
I mean, they play pretty well. They don't have a point guard now either, right? I mean, I
Yeah.
like Burks as a player. They really don't have a point guard right now.
Mhm.
Randall hasn't played to anywhere near his potential. Even Grimes would become a relevant. So, just quickly, I thought the Knicks' effort was okay. Barrett's been playing well. I think it's more the Sixers flexing their muscles.
Yeah.
I Embiid and Harden. I find it hard to believe this won't work with the two of them.
Yeah.
So I really just view it as that, and not to be simplistic. I just the better team flexed their muscles in the fourth. Thought the Knicks played hard. They gave a good effort, but that's status quo. I to be expected is how I viewed it.
What was your
Yeah.
thought process on how that trade went down? I mean, Harden, everything seemed okay, and all of a sudden out of nowhere, he says, "Yeah, get me out of here." 36 hours go by, and he's gone. And then Simmons looked like Simmons has been wanting to be gone for 8 months, and yet still sitting there. And then all of a sudden, oh yeah, we can make it happen now.
So it's funny. Let me harken back to the trade last year. I remember when they made that trade, and I looked around at who they gave up. From the Nets perspective, right? They gave up Jared Allen, they gave up LeVert, and all of a sudden I'm looking at that team and I'm like, wait a minute. They had problems on the interior. They had depth issues. Now they're even worse. When it was Harden. So no one doubted their high end potential, but everyone, including myself, how is that going to work with Kyrie, him, or from the Nets perspective? I think the trade was phenomenal. I actually do, because Ben Simmons, again, if I'm a Sixer fan, I'm disgusted with Ben Simmons. I thought everything he did, he was basically a crybaby. But like we've talked in the past, I think if you put Ben Simmons on a team where he's now the third option, where now he doesn't need to be great offensively. If he's playing with Kyrie and Durant, like, to me, that is the perfect fit for him. I mean, he can do everything else he's great at, and you won't miss a beat with him. Forget shooting a 3-pointer, doing this. He doesn't need to.
No.
And I don't minimize this either. You brought in Andre Drummond into this thing. Again, the Nets last year, rebounding, defense. I don't care what you say. Like, yeah, Drummond's going to get his numbers. You add Seth Curry. You add another shooter now. I all of a sudden look at the Nets, and I'm like, wait a minute. You have all these guys. If Joe Harris comes back, like, they're Patty Mills, like they're so much more a complete team in my mind after this trade. Like, when you look, they're actually deep, and that's why I'm like, yeah. For me, I think it was they even got draft picks back. The Nets didn't have a draft pick for, what, 4 or 5? I forgot what the max rule is. 4 years, I think.
65.
Yeah, 20, 30, 65.
The next time the Knicks will be good.
Yeah. So, like, I honestly think it was a masterful trade for the Nets. I really do, because, again, Harden's not super young now either. I know he's still really good, but I think, honestly, I think the Nets did exactly the right thing. And I think teams are very, they're too proud. They don't want to admit they made a mistake. I'm not per se saying they made a mistake getting Harden, but I think they realized this isn't working how we wanted to, and now our long term is in question. I think it's a slam dunk for them, to be honest. I really do. I love the move for the Nets. And as much as, like, Ben Simmons annoys me, he's still a really good basketball player. He has a fresh start. He can write this chapter off and hopefully mature in life and on the court. And I think it's a perfect opportunity there, because he doesn't need the ball in his hands. He'll do everything he's great at. He can flourish at now with no questions asked.
Yeah.
The Sixers, I think this can be a win-win trade. I mean, they're obviously, there's no way you can tell me they're better not having James Harden. You have to be better than before.
Yeah.
The Simmons Embiid thing last year, to me, that was it. If you can't beat Atlanta, with home court in the playoffs, when was it going to happen? I don't think it was going to. I do think they gave up a lot. Like I don't know. I don't know long term if it's in the best interest, but I totally understand them taking the shot because Embiid is a top 5 player in the league. The window is finite. How many years is he at that level? He's had injury problems in the past.
Right.
I totally get like this is the go for it moment. I do think the peripheral pieces like Seth Curry, I think that is an issue. But if that's what you had to do, and Tyrese Maxey now, who they wouldn't include in the trade, he's taken another step. I totally get it. Like it's kind of an all-in move, and I agree. Sometimes you're in that position, like do it now. So I think the Nets, it's a slam dunk. I think the Sixers, it's risky, but I get it. It's worth the gamble because you can't hold on to Ben Simmons. Well, this was never going to work anymore on the court or off. So yeah, it's sometimes it's the divorce in anything in life. It's inevitable, and that they were there. That wasn't getting better.
Yeah.
And now, just the same thing, right? They're both. I would personally take the Nets, but they're both championship contenders now. They both are.
Yeah, and it's crazy to even say the Nets are championship contenders where they're standing right where they're at in the standings right now.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Where are they in the 7th spot right now? 7 or 8?
I think they were 9. They were 9 last night before they lost. So they might be 8 now. Hold on, I'm telling you.
Can you imagine?
They're 8.
Can you imagine being the 1 seed and you legit may play the Nets
at full power? Yeah.
And again, I really believe this. I think the Nets, from a depth perspective, are 20 times better than last year. I really do.
I agree.
Like, they won last night. They beat Milwaukee. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is a legit. I would never in a million years say with 20 games left that none of these people have played together, that this is definitely going to work. I don't know how I can pick them. I really, honestly, I believe that. I think the Nets are the best team in basketball right now. I do. I actually do.
That was definitely a flex too. Them beating a full-powered Bucks team with just Kyrie.
Yes,
it's crazy.
And seriously, you're literally going to add Durant and Simmons.
Right.
And Simmons here's where, let me add this one piece too. This is where I think offensively, when teams bring a player in, right, that's often a bigger concern. Like Westbrook with the Lakers this year, right? Mm-hmm. They found out the fit doesn't work offensively. So with 20 games, it's even more a risk. But Simmons doesn't have to have the ball in his hands now, and that to me is like the perfect. I just think it's seamless, the transition. This is the perfect spot for him to be in, and for them. So they just added a world-class basketball player who can be a third option, or he can make a difference without shooting the ball.
Right.
I really do. I think it's I can't believe that I'm saying this, but I actually think the Nets are, if they're healthy, the clear-cut favorite to me. I really believe that.
That's crazy.
I do. And I forgot Dragic. You just added
they sound
a legit. Well. That's what I mean. They're deep everywhere. They actually are.
Mm-hmm.
Like if the last year the injuries killed them. This year, I think they can get around that. I do. I mean, they need Durant, of course, but
they definitely need Durant. But yeah, like you said, if they're full power, they're a scary sight for anybody in that upper tier of the Eastern Conference. Wherever they land, I'm scared for whoever they got to play.
That you can't tell me other than Milwaukee, and I wouldn't consider them the favorite anyway. That's just me. Who they could literally be the favorite in every series as the 8 or 9 seed.
Right. That's sick.
I mean, I guess like, whoever, maybe Milwaukee gets home court, maybe them, but you can't tell me any one of those other teams, and I'll put Philly in there as well. I'm favoring over the Nets. I'm not. No way.
Even Milwaukee getting home court, all that means is that's one more game of Kyrie.
Right. Do you really want home court against the Nets?
And that is I'm glad you guys brought that up. That's a big factor now because Mayor Adams, it sounds like that vaccine mandate is going to be lifted.
Yeah.
Like the way that everything is trending right now in the world, in our country, that seems to be what's going to happen. So I'd be more surprised than not if that didn't happen.
Right.
So obviously that's an issue. That is an issue, obviously, if it is not lifted. But it seems to everyone that this is now on the way.
being a resident, not to cut you off, partner, being a resident of the city, they're already like, you don't have to show your vaccination card to go inside a restaurant to eat anymore. And that seemed like it happened really quick. So now that they're like, it's rumblings about them lifting the mandate, I feel like it's going to happen sooner than later.
No doubt.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, you just added. Yeah, it's just crazy to me. It's rarely a time like a team makes a trade, and I obviously you can tell I'm gushing over it, and I'm not a Nets fan. I honestly think it was like because they added Drummond. I seriously think that adding Drummond and Curry are not to be underestimated. Curry's another, like last year when they had their injuries. Joe Harris unfortunately didn't play well in the playoffs. They had no one who could knock down a shot. Seth Curry that's like a throw-in.
That's all he does.
He's lethal on this team now. With Kyrie and Durant, he's going to have and even Simmons, who's can obviously an excellent passer. He's going to have open shots all day. I think it's slam dunk to me.
So that being said, I mean, it's safe to say at this point that the Harden, Durant, Kyrie thing was a failure because they obviously blew it up, and the three of them barely ever played together as it was. Did this thing just make good on that? And like, okay, well, we don't have to remember this as a failure anymore.
That remains to be seen, I think.
Well, but even if it doesn't work, and as far as the championship's concerned, Greg was like we were talking about. Greg brought up the fact that they got all the draft picks back, so they're not.
Yeah.
The future's not in the tank anymore, like it could have been.
I know last year. Just from my point, last year, like we talked about this, I thought it was really, really risky for the Nets because the cupboard was bare if it didn't work. I got to be honest, though, and objective here. I think if those guys were healthy, they were winning the title, though. I mean, they were literally Durant's foot was an inch behind the line from them beating the Bucks right there.
Yeah.
So even shorthanded, they almost won that title. So I can't categorically say it was a failure. It was very risky, and I think the risk outweighed the reward is how I'd term it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we talked earlier, man. I think I give the GM credit. Like he realized they're getting deeper into this now, and it's like kind of move on and cut your losses now, or if they don't win again this year, now they're in trouble. Now the cupboard is bare. So I think that I can't. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think if those three stayed healthy last year, which they weren't close, I think they win the title if they were.
Yeah. I feel like they were the most talented team.
It would have been. I mean, they were basically the LeBron Miami Heat teams.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
It would have.
It was a fit
been
question.
Really hard to take down.
Yeah.
And as much for me, like I'm trying to be like James Harden has infuriated me over the years just with his play, a lot of things. I have to even give him credit from last year. He literally took the point guard role and was good with that. He became where he was, far more selfish in prior years. Mm-hmm. He was more than okay with taking that role last year. And when that happened, I was like, wow, now this can work. Kyrie became the 2. He was the 1. It's like, wow, this can actually work now.
Yeah.
I just, the injuries, it foiled them. But I think I think it's a great, I don't even want to say admitting your mistake, but for the Nets realizing, okay, the way you drew it up, it's not going to work now. We got to go a different direction. And again, long term, because Harden everyone knew he was going to leave, and he told the front office that, which I give him credit for. He kept it quiet, but he said, guys, I'm not going to probably stay around. So, it was a great move.
It's funny you brought up Westbrook as a comparison as far as things working out, things not working out. We're a handful of guys on the internet talking last year. We could have told you that the Westbrook thing wasn't going to work out because it was too many of the same type of piece all trying to do the same thing at the same time. Why couldn't the people that make millions of dollars to realize what things work and what things don't work? Why couldn't they figure it out if we could figure it out?
On that same token, I have to ask this. I want to know where Shad is because last time I was with you guys, I had a reaction that like what he picked the Lakers to win the title. Do you guys remember that?
I remember that. Yeah.
I mean, is he hiding from us? Because I don't think that one's aging too well.
Last time I checked, they were down 30. I don't know where they're
Like,
at
if
right now.
I
but-
honestly think if Portland, because Portland dealt McCollum, and like, I actually think there's a chance without that they could have actually not even made the 10 seed. I actually believe that. They stink. They are not a good team. Like, they're really not.
They're the worst team in basketball.
I mean, but seriously,
The
like,
Pistons still
they're
exist.
they're not good. Like,
I like watching the Pistons. I don't like watching the Lakers.
yeah, they're not. You
Yeah.
don't even feel like they're that. Like that Clippers game last night. I mean, you're like, I don't
I felt
know.
bad more than anything.
Oh, I didn't feel bad. No.
No.
But like, I'm honestly, I'm being honest when I say this. I don't think anyone can give me one reason why they think the Lakers at this point have any chance of doing anything. Like, they're really not that good. Like, this isn't 2 games. This isn't 5 games. Like, this is bad.
Yeah. Tragic.
Well,
Yeah, I mean,
Well-
where's the help coming from? It's not, is the point. It's not.
we'll have Shad back to talk about Selection Sunday with you in a couple weeks, and you guys can kick around the Lakers too.
I'm gonna have to kick him. I'm gonna have to give him a shot or two. I mean, that was. You remember all of our faces? We're like, what?
What? Have you not seen them?
I'll give him like 10%. You know, I get the semblance of the argument because, again, I mean,
It's
obviously
LeBron.
you have LeBron, you have Davis, and even Westbrook is still Westbrook, but it's just it hasn't fit and worked. Obviously, that's clearly obvious at this point. They're losing to bad teams at home. Like, it's not worked. It hasn't worked. No, there's no magical run in that, and there's no magic carpet ride coming this time. There's no chance.
Oh,
no
no.
chance.
Yeah. Because even
Like,
if they do have a magic run, they're going to be burnt out by the time the playoffs start.
Like, I'm actually serious, and I'm not trying to be, not hyperbole. I'd be shocked if they actually got out of that 7. I really believe that at this point. Like, they're just, I don't think they're good enough. They're not.
They're not making the offs, I don't think. Me personally.
I just, the teams below them are like, that's the thing. Like Portland's going to tail off now that, they don't have anything now. The team who's chasing below, like,
The
New
Pelicans.
Orleans.
San Antonio.
yeah, like Sacramento. I'd love to see it, and I think it could happen, but I don't see any of those teams winning enough games.
All right, hold
They're-
on. Fun fact, this is hot off the presses. The Pelicans are currently beating the Lakers by 30 right now, right? So if they win this game, they're going to be tied for 10th place.
You know what? That's a great point. It is no, you're wrong. They're only down 28. Get it right.
Oh, my fault. My fault.
Wait, and even better. I just looked over. Westbrook, 15 points. Get this one: 0 assists, 7 turnovers.
Yeah. Best point guard in the league.
And listen, Westbrook was amazing last year. It's just not fitting on that team. That's it. It's if he went somewhere else, I think it would be a different story. But
Or
Yeah.
he stayed in Washington.
He should have just
Yeah.
stayed in Washington.
yep,
Is he only good on bad teams?
I don't
Maybe.
think that. Here's my take on Westbrook. When he was with the Thunder, he was really immature. I mean, like, I understood why Durant left.
Yeah.
You know how I brought up Auburn earlier, that there's way too many possessions. Jabari Smith isn't seeing the ball. That was the NBA with Durant.
Got you.
No, seriously, like, as good as Westbrook is, and I'm not, when you have, arguably one of the best scorers in the history of basketball on Kevin Durant, you're not the guy who should be taking the big shots at the end of the game, Westbrook. He's not a great shooter to begin with,
Right.
So I think he did mature, and I think, but I don't want to write this one off, but I really think the fit with LeBron, it's obviously just been a terrible fit. I do. So, yeah, and I really believe that sometimes, like, just the individual pieces are better than the sum, and I think that's the case with the Lakers. This just didn't work. I can't kill Westbrook.
Yeah.
It's not only because I think that's also the easy excuse here too. Granted, Westbrook hasn't been great per se, but
It's
that's
not.
like
It's not.
that's like using him as they have a lot of warts that on that team. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
That's like the scapegoat. Oh, Russell came. No, they haven't. They've stunk. And everybody, it seems like they dealt is playing well too, which makes me laugh.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, quickly, before you wrap, I want to go back to our beloved Knicks. Julius Randle hasn't been playing that well as of late. Do you think it's time to move on from him, or do you think like this is just a bad season, or because I don't know what we need to do to fix our team for it to play. I really fear that the Knicks are going to try to go after Zion. I'm scared that that's about to happen.
I agree with you there. I'm torn on Randall because the one thing, and this isn't, I know this shouldn't be a factor, and in most places it wouldn't. When he basically gave the finger to the fans, like I really mean this. This is New York. You
Can't do that.
You can't do that there. Like it. Do I think that has played into his psyche a little bit? Yes, I do. I actually, but to back up, aside from that, we've spoken in the past. Randall, he's not a first option anyway. To me, he's best as a third option, maybe a second. And I think we're talking about fit. I think for the Knicks to improve, he has to be in that role. He can't be the lead guy. He had a miraculous season last year, but we spoke about that ad nauseum. Like that, I think was an anomaly. That wasn't going to happen again. I think we all believe that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to get rid of him. They're going to need to go a different direction. That he can't be the focal point. Is how I'd put it. I think even now, like Barrett seems to kind of be taking that mantle a little bit.
Yeah. I think we're starting to see it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't want to overreact again. Derrick Rose going out was brutal.
Yeah, that was a big hurt on us.
And I'm being honest, even bigger than I thought the effect would have been. I'm being honest on that. Kemba, physically, he didn't hold up.
Not there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think it's anything other than that. I think physically, it's just the knees have taken a toll. So and again, we're kind of at square one with the Knicks. We've had arguably, the worst backcourt and point guards, and Rose is good. Don't get me wrong, but he's not. He himself said he can't play 36 minutes a game anymore. He said it.
He's not MVP. He's not MVP, Derrick Rose.
Yeah, exactly. He's great as your, I don't know, 25-minute a game. He's excellent in that role. So I think number one, it gets back to me again that we need a point guard.
It never
because that can also fix, a lot of Randall shooting, even a lot of Randall shooting. They're not being put in good spots to shoot the ball. He's not a ball in his hand, break you off the dribble guy. He's just not, right?
No.
To me, it all stems at point guard. Like they need a point guard. So hopefully, in the draft this year, we're definitely going to be in the lottery. That's a guarantee.
Yeah.
I hope they get a point guard. Like I mentioned, like Johnny Davis out of Wisconsin. Like give me somebody like that. Like I don't think they're nearly as far off. Like I think we're last year. I think, they say don't judge a team by its best game and its worst. I'll use that as in the season perspective, right? They weren't as good as they were last year. I don't think they're as bad as they are right now either. I think it's somewhere in the middle for me.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's like pure carnage like we were 5 years ago. I think this is fixable. Put it that way. That's my take.
Yeah, my problem is like I don't think we have to get rid of Randall, but at the same time, it's going to be a timing thing. Like Orlando's putrid, Detroit is putrid, Indiana's awful, Houston is absolutely abysmal. Oklahoma City has a ton of talent, but they're just not. They don't have a good record this year. So there's a lot of bad teams behind us. So like there's someone like Johnny Davis or another college stud point guard to fall to us might be asking a lot. And like, where's the timing going to go is like, if you're going to trade Randall, if you're going to trade Randall and you think you can get something in return for him, you kind of have to do it early, like before the draft, because once the draft happens, everyone's set. It's like, okay, no, this is what we took. This is who we want. And
Yeah.
you're not gonna be able, and if you wait until like the middle of the summer to trade Randall, you're not gonna get back what you want anyway. And then you just basically gave up a productive player for scrap parts.
Right.
I'm just looking now at the standings. As much as I lamented badly that draft with Zion where we got Barrett. I was steadfast from day one. I wanted John Morant. James, you and I talked about that.
Yeah.
This year, the way that, and this is relevant now because we're talking about college and the draft. The way the draft is and the top three players, I'd be shocked if it's not them. None of them are guards, which is a good thing.
Good
right?
thing. Yeah.
It's a good thing, first of all, because I cannot see any one of those three teams not taking Smith, Banchero, or Holmgren right off the bat. So if you're then anywhere near, if the Knicks are anywhere to 4 to 10, you also have some teams now, depending on how this lottery shakes. You had Orlando took Jalen Suggs last year. They
Like him a lot.
They have Cole Anthony. Where I'm going with this, the Knicks could get a little lucky with who drops to them.
Yeah.
Because like even Oklahoma City, Shea
They don't need a
Gilgeous,
point guard. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Now, could a team just take one of the guards? I actually think the Knicks stand a shot to luck out in that 7. You see where I'm going with that?
Yeah.
Like I think they could luck out in that area this year because it's just those top picks. Like you already get through 3. Even Ivy, who I said from Purdue, he's probably going top 6. I'd be very surprised if he's not. He's more of a 2 guard as well. So right off the bat, I got 4 guys who are going to go on that top that they're not taking a guard.
The Pacers don't need a point guard and they're behind us. You know what I mean?
So yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Like even like Portland's going to fall in that. What will Portland? Even San Antonio.
Yeah.
Like I'm just looking at these teams. Sacramento, De'Aaron Fox. Like I think we stand a really good chance. Again, call it luck. It's just the way the teams are structured. The way that I think we might get the guy this year. Yeah. It has to be someone that pans out, but I feel pretty good about that myself.
Yeah. Houston's probably taking one, but Houston's going to probably taking whoever is like clear cut number 1.
Right.
But that's what I mean. Like if you're Houston, you're so far away.
Just grab the best player.
Yeah. I mean, if Houston's top 3, there's no way they're not grabbing one of those 3. There's no way. They're too good. They're too, So that's what I'm saying. Like, the more I look at it, I'm like, well, you know what? Like this could actually work out.
We just need not to screw it up.
I agree with you
please.
though. I don't think you have to trade Randall. I think you have to tweak the parts. Like I'm just looking at the mock draft here. Like Ty Washington from Kentucky. Again, who knows where these guys fall, but he's basically on some of these, he's the top point guard listed, and they have him going 7 to Portland right now. Point is, the Knicks are probably going to be somewhere in that 7 to 10, assuming not a huge deviation in the lottery. So I think we may luck out here. I do. I could totally see them getting one of these guys. Yeah. So anyway,
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I don't totally trust it because Tibbs is not a tanker, but I'll be hopeful. I'll be positive. I won't be a negative Nancy.
Well, where are you guys on Tibbs? That's a good question too. How do you guys? What's your overall take on Tibbs this year?
I'm okay to keep letting it go. I mean, he's being a little rigid with his rotation, but that's also Tibbs.
I agree. Like I feel like last year, like everything was working, and now I feel like this year is a little bit of adversity. So I would like to give Tibbs another run. But like you said, I think he needs to relinquish some of that rotation chain a little bit and let these players play, because we have a lot of decent players on that bench that let's see what they have. You know what I mean? We're already not in the playoffs or anything like that. So let's just see what we have with the players that we got on the bench.
Yeah, I mean, Quickly's been like a forgotten man, and he was a stud for us.
Cam Reddish hardly plays. What do we get him for?
Yeah, I don't think he's had a great year. I think his coaching is similar to what the Knicks. I don't think he's had a great year, but I think he changed the team enough last year they're in a total different direction that like I was waiting too. Like it was clear to me 2-3 weeks ago, and I get it. I'm not a fan of tanking. I'm not a fan of, trying to lose games. But I am a fan of like when you realize, you're finished.
Yeah.
Let's see the young kids play more. I think
Yeah.
by default now that's happened, because now
Right.
Kemba's not going to play anymore. So I don't think he's had a great year, but I'm with you guys. Like I don't think we should replace him either. I think he's a good coach, and things didn't work out this year is really the way I look at it.
Yeah.
That's my take.
Yeah.
So I don't again, it's been a terrible year, but I don't have that same like doom and gloom, like, oh gosh, like we're in trouble for 20 years now again. I don't think they're there.
Yeah, I mean, the teams ahead of us have had like talent binges. Like Charlotte's got a ton of talent. Atlanta's got a ton of talent. Toronto's really rebounded well. Washington was a little bit of a surprise, but it kind of worked out a little bit.
They got Kristaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Magic.
They got the unicorn. Unicorn
Man,
and
I remember
Wizards.
being with Chase when we drafted him. That was funny. Yeah. That was funny. Yeah, I don't think the Knicks are. I really don't think that far off. Now that I think of it, we want Ty Washington from Kentucky. I've made my decision. That's what we want.
That's what we
Because
want.
even Davis
All
was.
right.
You know what? Davis for Wisconsin. I love him. I think he's more of a 2-guard at the next level. The more I give this thought, so let's root for Ty Washington from Kentucky. I think that's the guy we gotta. Yeah.
All right.
I think that's it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
well-
so I don't, and I mean some of this too, like, and I think this was a big factor this year. That again, I'm not killing the front office. They haven't laden us with 20,000 bad contracts in the past, but they made a decision, and this obviously was a huge factor. DeRozan was looking at the Knicks, and they really didn't show him much interest. We went the Fournier route, and DeRozan is. You could make an argument. DeRozan is.
DeRozan's an all-pro.
He might be MVP.
Yeah, I literally was just going to go there. Some of his shooting numbers that they showed recently, like they're some of the best numbers you've ever seen. Like, late in games, like efficiency wise, like he's really been like that darn good. So, yeah. So the point is, I just think it's kind of a season that they overachieved last year. It didn't work out as well this year, but I don't think we're blow the ship up again. I don't think. If you moved, like getting back to Randall, if you moved Randall and the move made sense from a fit perspective, I'm good with it. But don't do it to do it either. He's still a very good player.
Yeah, I agree.
And again, if he's not in that lead role, a lot. Like you remember the playoffs this year against Atlanta. The offense was horrible, and he was trying to go like one-on-one. I'm not blaming him for it. It's because they were limited offensively. He had to do that.
Yeah, and
right?
and they know that he only wants to go left. So,
yeah, and in the playoffs where teams now play defense every night.
Yeah,
if you were a coach playing the Knicks last year, I would have done the same darn thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Get the ball to Randall's hands. He's shown he's blown up enough here. Don't let him beat you. There's no chance they score enough to beat us.
Right.
Yeah. I think it still applies, right?
Yeah. They got found out.
Yeah. No, I agree. I really think that's what happened.
Yeah.
So for me, get the point guard. I think that changes everything. I honestly do, because I don't think they're that far off anymore. I don't.
Yeah.
They're not near winning a title, but they're not light years either. Like it could happen.
We got some talent, you know what I mean? We got a little bit of talent. So that hasn't been the theme past couple of years. Finally, it's looking a little bright at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, and not that we're rooting for I think we're all tired of rooting for them to lose to be in the lottery, but in my opinion, I'd rather that right now than get the 10 seed and lose a game and you're going to lose immediately. That does nothing.
Yeah.
That does nothing for me. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So I think the way the lottery is structured, I think we might luck out this year. I really do when I look at the breakdown, because a lot of those teams they're not going to go point guard. So let's hope.
Yeah. From your lips to God's ears.
Yeah.
And if DeMar Rosen wins the MVP, that's my birthday, buddy.
Hey.
I don't get the same joy when Sidney Crosby wins MVP, but that's besides the point.
So you got to get a DeMar DeRozan tattoo.
Yes.
Well, Greg, I would like to thank you for your knowledge and expertise on college basketball. You've been a valuable asset to the show, and can't wait to have you back. For the listeners out there, if you want to come kick it with us before Selection Sunday, hit us up on our socials at Hoops Voice Pod at both Instagram and Twitter, and chat it up with us. Shout out to my co-host, CProc, and it's your boy Jet. And until next time, Hoops Boys Pod.
Kobe.
Peace.
Adios, boys.